And then after that, I'm actually going to go see 2 regions of Czechia I have not seen before. The Czech culture is like unique, and what is making me different from some of my peers. It's really challenging for a lot of people. And so I made the joke, I was like, are those beers for your passengers?
Chtěli byste studovat v USA? Mrkněte na náš web www.study-gate.cz a využijte naší bezplatné konzultace a slevy na naše služby 10% s kódem CHCI do USA 10. Přejeme vám příjemný poslech a moc děkujeme za vaši podporu. Welcome to the StudyGate podcast. Today with Austin Sappington, the dynamic force behind the popular Instagram page Slavic Bros and a passionate advocate for preserving the unique Texas Czech dialect and culture. Welcome, Austin.
Thank you for having me. Jak se máš, y'all?
All good. So I wanted to start with a different question, but before we started the podcast, you mentioned you are going to the Czech Republic. So I wanted to ask where you are going, what is your plan, and have you ever been to Czech Republic before?
Yeah, I've been to Czechia a couple of times. I studied abroad there in college and also volunteered over there. And actually, I'm leaving for Czechia tomorrow. I'm leaving tomorrow, and then I'll be there for the whole next week up until July 8th. And I'm actually going for the Sokol Slet, where I'll be representing Sokol Milwaukee. It's kind of interesting. Like, they're like a Sokol that's trying to become like a virtual Sokol as well. So I got kind of affiliated with them, and, given like the Slavic Bros presence on TikTok, especially in some other platforms, they encouraged me to apply and go, and I got accepted. And now we'll be going for that and carrying their flag in the Sokol Slet Parade and participating in some other events. And then after that, I'm actually going to go see 2 regions of Czechia I have not seen before: South Bohemia around České Budějovice, and then the Eastern Bohemian region around Poděbrady and going east into Hradec Králové area. And then I'll conclude with going to Hody with a friend down in South Moravia.
Oh, that's amazing. And how did you connect with Sokol from Milwaukee? Because you are from Texas, which is, Milwaukee, if someone doesn't know, is super far. Like, it's up north. So how did you connect with them?
Well, Czech Americans, a lot of us kind of know each other. Like, there's it's kind of like one network where like you have like different regions, but we all kind of know people who are pretty involved in different areas. So actually, a person who teaches Czech named Anna Kukova, she is affiliated with Sokol Milwaukee, and we kind of got in touch because of the Slavic Bros and just, her Czech classes, and over time built a relationship. And she encouraged me, because at the time I joined Sokol Milwaukee, I was living in Florida and there was no Sokol there. So she said, I'm trying to make Sokol Milwaukee become like a Sokol where there's like virtual opportunities, kind of like this right here. And so I was like, yeah, I'll join. And so then I joined, and then kind of stayed in touch with them and found out about the sleds, and they encouraged me to apply and go and everything.
I would like to start from the very beginning. Can you tell us something about yourself and how did you get started with the Slavic Bros, the Instagram page?
So growing up, my mom is Texas Czech, and just kind of growing up around the culture in Texas, I kind of took it for granted a lot. Like, I didn't really think it was anything special until I moved away to go to school. First, I went to University of Texas in Austin, and there aren't really, at UT anyways, there wasn't a lot of like the Texas Czechs there. So it's kind of hard at first, and it kind of made me really realize, like, the Czech culture is like unique, and what is making me different from some of my peers. But really the strongest thing I would say was when I moved to Washington, D.C. and studied my master's degree there. I just, being away from Texas, it really hit me, like, just how the Czech culture, the Texas Czech culture is just so unique and awesome. And just, I also had the privilege of meeting a lot of Czech friends from Europe. And, like, there's a lot of just kind of comments from them saying they really wish that certain things would get promoted more with Czech culture, or they wish the culture would get put out there more. And all of that really kind of motivated me to want to develop this project. And then while right now I'm kind of the main face of it, I have a friend named Tyler who does it with me, and he is Polish American, and so we kind of met in Washington D.C. and developed the ideas of this project and kind of put it in place from there, and really start taking it seriously about a year ago now. And since then, I've really tried to keep consistently making content.
Mm-hmm. As you already mentioned, you have family heritage from Czech Republic, and so this might be really philosophical, I would say, but why do you think it's important to keep Czech language alive and like in cities in Texas, because there are cities that can speak Czech actually, and you can go around the city and just speak with people in Czech. So why do you think it's important to keep that?
I think it's very important because the Texas Czech community really started in the late 1800s. Most immigrants didn't really come until like the 1890s and early 1900s, but we've been here since like the 1860s or so. And so for almost 100 years or more, the Czech language was going continuously in these areas. And then, given that many of us have origins from Eastern Moravia, we kind of brought those dialects with us, and they evolved here. And you can hear a lot of words that are not common in Czechia anymore here in just very older Czech. So I think it's very important to kind of preserve this heritage. And also, we owe it to our ancestors. Like, they kept the culture going so strong here and just the language going. And I'll be honest, we've let it slip over the past couple of decades, and we really need to pick it back up. But it's just a really important way to honor our ancestors, stay in touch with contemporary Czechia, and just, we're a small culture, a small country, and just, it helps keep it going.
Mm. And as we heard on the beginning, you can speak Czech. How did you learn it? From your parents or from your family, or did you have some teacher?
Well, kind of a mixture of my grandparents and then also studying at university. So for my grandpa especially, I picked up on a lot of the Texas Czech words and slang as a young kid, the jak se máš, ogaro, and Serka for girl, and just all these little unique words and phrases, Jeda Nechki, Maria, all kinds of little things like that. And I studied it at University of Texas. And actually through there, I was able to go on this kind of immersion program and study it over a summer at Charles University, and then West Bohemia University in Czechia. And then after that, I did some online coursework for about, had an online tutor for about, I would say about a year and a half. And that's how I got to where I am, where I am now.
Mm-hmm. And how do you actively learn the Czech language, or how do you practice it? Because in the US, the Czech is not that common, so, and as I know, I live in the United States right now, and for me, practicing English every day really helps me, but still it's really hard to keep on learning, because you are in a close environment in a way. So how do you keep learning or growing in Czech language?
It's really challenging for a lot of people. I guess in a way I kind of am a little bit lucky because of, Slavic Bros, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm getting a lot of comments in the Czech language. So I'm able to read them and kind of practice and try to respond in Czech. And I know a lot of Czech au pairs, and, we'll talk in Czech a little bit. And I feel like my Czech is on the level of probably like a 5-year-old, but, we'll we'll talk, and just I'm able to kind of keep practicing like that. And then talking to my grandpa as well. But he's in his 80s now, and he's very he's like, oh, I don't say it like that. I say it like this. I don't understand you. So sometimes we can talk, sometimes we can't talk. Because some of the standard Czech, he just is real stubborn about, for example, just the kluk versus ogar, for example, or just little things like that.
Mm-hmm. And can you name one thing that fascinates you about Czech Republic?
Oh, a lot of things. It's hard to name just one thing.
Okay, so tell more.
I would say just how rich the culture is, the folklore and just the food and the drinking culture. You can see where all these different areas of Europe all meet in the heart of Europe, Czechia, and just kind of look and see of course, the Slavic roots mixed with German influence and a little bit of Hungarian, Balkan influence thrown in. And it just has made such a beautiful culture, I think.
Yeah, I'm super glad you mentioned that we are in the heart of Europe, because, of course, telling someone here in the US that I'm from the Czech Republic, that makes me immediately Eastern European. So I'm glad that someone said the heart of Europe. And I'm also telling many people like, hey, we are in the heart of Europe and we are really proud of that. So thank you for that. And you've been to Czech Republic. And I guess the first experience was pretty intense. I would guess it. So what surprised you about Czech Republic? Was there something? Maybe that's the question. Was there something that surprised you, or were you expecting all of it?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about that before. I would say just coming from Texas, people are pretty like friendly at first, and Czechs are very friendly once you get to know them, and like family, very outgoing with family and friends. But when you're strangers, it's very like stranger danger kind of vibes, where you're very like reserved at first and just standoffish. So I think that might have been a culture shock at first when I first got there. Like I remember I had I think it was an Uber driver from the airport, and he was just, I was used to kind of like talking to Uber drivers, and he was very standoffish, and he had like all these beers in his doorway in his car, and like a lot. I think he had like 3 or 4 just kind of like stashed there. And so I made the joke. I was like, "Are those beers for your passengers?" No. So I think what shocked me at first was just kind of like the different dynamics when it came to communicating, and just getting used to that.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that your Czech heritage has somehow influenced you? For example, your taste of music or something like that?
Absolutely. Like because talking about like like how people communicate, I'm myself pretty like reserved at first. Like I hate it when people just start randomly talking to me.
Oh.
I mean, if they need something or if they need help or something, I'll help. But just like, or if it's like kind of like that kind of vibe. But if I'm just like kind of like just like walking and like someone just like stops and tells me hello, it's just not my type of thing. So that I think comes maybe from my Czech heritage, like where it's just like very like you're taught to be kind of like, you're taught to be a little bit slower with people you don't, like, kind of like be a little bit slower in communicating with people you don't know well. Mm-hmm. And then just of course my taste in music, I love like the accordion music and the polka music, and like just anything that kind of all of that. I know in Czechia it's kind of like a little bit of an older sound now, but I love that stuff. Like Texas Czech polkas and Jaromír Nohavica, Divoké Bill, Slovak bands like Kolárovci, Kondračovci. I love all of that. I'm listening to that all the time. So that definitely comes from my Czech background. I like that over a lot of American music.
Let's use this and invite all of our listeners to your Instagram, TikTok page and everything, because they can see how you enjoy and how you jam on the Czech music, and you can really the words, you can sing it, so that's pretty amazing. You did a research for Czech relations with the Czech diaspora in the US, and you got a Masaryk Scholars program, or you got into the Masaryk Scholars program, right? Can you tell us more about the program or the research?
Yeah, that was an awesome program they had back in 2022 at the Czech Embassy in Washington, D.C. They had an intern actually named Adam Chorgo, he's like a legend. He was awesome. Like he actually put together that whole program by himself and just got it going. And it was really a great opportunity to kind of just like network within like the Czech American communities and, meet Czech diplomats, such as Jan Voska, who's the cultural attaché at the embassy, meet the Czech ambassador at the time, whose name was Hinek Kominicek. And it was really, I feel like that was an instrumental program and kind of just like helping to get the word about the Czech Americans out there a lot to like, the the Czech diplomatic circles. Cause we had the privilege of kind of like, researching like the Czech American dynamics, and also we're very involved in helping with putting on the EU open house, the Czech embassy that year. Myself and a girl named Anna Shedivi kind of helped have a Kroje fashion show there. Excuse me. And from there, it really kind of helped like us connect the dots with all these different communities spread around the U.S.
Mm-hmm. And we also read that you are interested in the Middle East, and you are even learning the Farsi language. What brought you to this topic?
Oh wow, you really did all the research. Well, I used to. So at first, when I first studied international relations, my focus was on the Middle East, and I was really interested in like because that was back in like the late 2010s where ISIS was scary and a huge deal, and at that time I really wanted to kind of like learn about the area and like kind of be involved in American foreign policy. I chose Farsi because I really find Iran to be such an intriguing country. Like they, a lot of people think of them as like a very like radical Islamic state, but the Iranian people actually a lot of them are very secular and very, very big on like their Persian identity as opposed to like a very conservative Islamic one. And just kind of learning about that really intrigued me. And I studied Farsi for 2 years, and I kind of regret it now because I don't use it. I kind of wish I would have been studying Czech instead because I could probably speak better. And that's what my family wanted me to do. But also, I think kind of like just learning Farsi, it really also kind of like helped me realize, I've got a heritage too, and I really need to kind of like take pride in it and realize that it's important and kind of learn Czech and be promoting the culture.
Mm-hmm. And were you ever planning to go to Middle East for something, research or just travel?
Well, I went to Israel back in 2018 to examine the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I went like on this like guided trip I got through school, and that was cool. We got to see a lot of Israel and look at a little bit of like the West Bank too. I actually got to see like one of these like villages that like the Hamas from Gaza attacked recently, like earlier this year. One of those villages, I got to go look at like this. We met a gym owner who had a gym for the local kids, and he was saying how sometimes the Palestinian kids would come and play with them too, and they all just got along so good. And like it was just so humbling to see, like, because they're so close to Gaza, and like that Hamas is a very radical organization that really is opposed to a lot of the Israelis. So it was very humbling just to see like the human aspect of it, where like there's politics and people hate each other politically, but the kids play with each other and like each other.
Mm-hmm. And did you have to study their religion, because the religion is quite a big problem there? So did you have to learn something about it?
Yeah, I took so when I was doing Middle Eastern studies as my focus, I took 2 or 3 classes on Islam and like the history of Islam and different versions of Islam. And Judaism I didn't study extensively. I had one class I think that talked a lot about Judaism, but I didn't like know it. I didn't study it as extensively as Islam.
Mm-hmm. Let's bring it back to your heritage, your Czech heritage. And you identify yourself as Czexan. Can you explain the term for us, please?
Well, Czexan is like the slang for Texas Czech. It's kind of been going on for a couple of years here in Texas. I really got big on it because of TikTok, and a lot of Czechs are just like so nice to each other. Like the diaspora, and a lot of Czechs get along really well, but there are some people that are really mean on TikTok especially, and would like be like, oh, it's not Czech, it's American or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? From now on, I'm just gonna do Czexan TikTok, where like I'll just brand myself as Czexan and all of that, and then no more there's no argument to be made with this. So I think it's just like Czexan is just kind of like like in Texas we have like the Tejanos, which are like Mexicans in Texas. So I guess Czexan is like the Czech variant of that. Really a lot of like the Czech American culture is very similar, but us Czech Americans from like Texas Czechans versus like Nebraska Czechs versus Wisconsin Czechs, we have these little differences, kind of like Bohemia versus Moravia versus Silesia. So I guess Czexan is just the best way to describe the content on Slavic Bros.
Mm-hmm. Are you planning in the future to maybe establish something related, some company maybe even related to Czech Republic or Czech heritage? I don't know, maybe baking koláče in Texas or, this type of things. Are you interested in that?
I would love to. I've got like a lot of kind of like little dreams and ambitions in my head right now that I would like to build towards. Like one of the main things for me is I would really like to kind of help out with like setting up some kind of like Czech language summer camp for kids. Me and some friends in Czechia have had these ideas to maybe like have a camp one of these days where like Czech kids can come to Texas and then, the Texas Czechs can go to the same place and they can kind of like hang out and learn from each other. Or we could have like teachers from Czechia come and kind of teach Czech at the camps and have them be like a 2-week camp or something like that. So, the kids will get basic exposure to the Czech language and kind of be able to, it won't be like a full sit down course, but at least it'll be like some basic exposure that could help ignite their interest for further studies.
Mm-hmm. I have a last question. What is your recommendation for people who want to learn Czech in the USA?
I would say, that's a good question. I would say probably like patience is key. Be very patient. And I would find things that you can relate to. I feel like for me in learning new languages, what really gets you talking and speaking is whenever you start consuming books or content on topics that interest you and also talking about things that interest you. Like for me, for example, I'm very interested in geography and like history. So in Czech, I've got the directions, north, south, east, west down pretty good, but I can't even remember how to say left and right sometimes. So just kind of like find topics that interest you and use those to kind of further dive into your studies on a more personal level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really great recommendation, and I think it even applies vice versa to Czech students who are trying to learn English. Just trying to find topic you are really interested in and just watching movies, watching videos, reading books, articles. That's really great recommendation. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much for showing us your perspective as Czexan. Good luck. And for all listeners, go follow Slavic Bros on social media. Good luck and thank you, Austin.
Moc děkuji. Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to come on the podcast and I love what y'all are doing. I feel like this is a really great project and it really will help kind of like just in kind of lifting the veil off of like the Czech culture so more people can see it and everything.
Pokud vás tento příběh zaujal a chtěli byste si život v USA vyzkoušet na vlastní kůži, podívejte se na náš web study.gate.cz.
A teď už jenom stačí dát odběr, ať vám neutečou další super epizody se zajímavými hosty. Moc děkujeme.